What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Circle Club show. I'm here with Corey of What's Next, our Marvel expert. How you doing, my man?
I'm great, dude. I'm great. Coming off a game three win for the Celtics. We're feeling good over here.
There we go, the Boston kid. I'm pumped about that. Um, Looking forward to the rest of the series, and we got a new series for us right here, man.
Mm.
Off the bat. Before we jump into anything, how you feeling about Miss Marvel? You liking it? You're not? What do you feel?
So honestly, like I this was the series I wasn't like super hyped for. Like I knew I was gonna watch it regardless, but really no expectations. And I came into it, I thought I had the best first episode out of all the Marvel shows that have been released. I thought it was very well done. We'll get into it in a little bit, but yeah, I thought they got me intrigued. Truthfully, it was interesting.
Yeah, like I remember when we had talked about it, we looked at the trailer and all that stuff. We were kind of like, is this for little kids? Is this for
Mm.
adults? Like, it was sort of kind of hard to like figure out where they were going with it. But I love the direction. Like, I keep saying over and over, like it really makes me think of Spider-Man: Homecoming. It
Mm.
makes me feel like there's a show called Never Have I Ever by Mindy Kaling. It's basically this Indian girl. It's on Netflix. Pretty funny. This Indian girl who's like going through high school, and it seems very similar style. I would not be surprised if like the writers are the same because the writing is a little similar. But yeah, I enjoy it so far. It wasn't like oh my god, but like for what it was, it felt
Mhm.
like a TV show. Like we talked about that, right? Where it was like,
Yeah.
a lot of these have kind of felt like movies or like mini series. Like this feels like a TV show. Like you're watching like Malcolm in the Middle or one of those
Mm.
type of shows.
Hmm. Yeah, I know
So
exactly what you're talking about.
so before we jump into these questions, Corey, man, anything you got to say about Marvel? Anything that's going on in the Marvel world that you think we should like kind of keep our eyes out or?
Yeah, I think like right now, I don't think we're getting enough hype behind Thor, truthfully.
Mm,
I think having Thor come off such a great third movie when the predecessor before that was really maybe the biggest stinker in Marvel ever. A lot of people really were kind of teetering on whether the first one was good or bad, right? Like in my opinion, I think it's a good movie, but not a lot of people and not as many of the masses enjoyed the first one. So coming off that third one with Taika Waititi, I think there should be a lot more excitement for the type of tone and character Thor is, but also having really the only main character from the original squad who's continuing on really, right? Like
yeah,
we kind of already see what the Hulk's doing, but the Hulk's the Hulk. Hulk's always kind of be like that secondary OG guy, right? We're talking
yeah.
about the main trilogy and RDJ and Chris Evans
Ruffalo
as the
said he wants
two
to be a
other.
lifer too. So
Yeah, and I'm all for that, but Thor is like that third trinity, right?
yeah,
So and I've heard a lot of people say that this trailer that they've seen is very corny, and I
mm,
think a lot of people forget that Marvel's only giving you a glimpse into the very beginning of what's actually happening in this movie, right? Like the whole plot, you're not going to actually know. I think we've talked about it being kind of a rom-com ish type movie, but there's
mm-hmm.
going to be the action. And I think people are very uh underestimating, or they're definitely underestimating how great I think Bale being in this movie is actually going to lead to probably a very good plot with a
Yeah.
very big villain, because I don't think Bale signs up for some lackluster movie at the end of the day.
No,
So I think
yeah, yeah.
it's
Bale.
got to be a spectacle, and it's released in the summer, so it's Marvel's summer movie, so it has to be a spectacle. That's like what the summer box office is for. So I'm expecting something big and not a flop, and I don't think the community is in that realm with me.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you actually, and I think that to your point, Christian Bale hopping on this project, like that's a big name. You don't waste a Christian Bale. Like that is a serious actor to get involved in this project. I also think too, like that we're not you and I necessarily, but I think a lot of people are forgetting how sort of like the implications of Moon Knight, what happened there, like
Mm.
how that's a very very big deal, right? And and honestly, like just getting that glimpse of the Black Panther goddess, like. I don't know, like we've been talking a lot about the Eternals, like how they're like very cosmic and this big thing. We haven't seen a ton of it yet, and I'm like, dude, like I don't know, like
Also,
you sort of
to
need to watch these things. Like this is
yeah,
about to be a big moment for us.
to your point, right? I think a lot of people also are out there saying like the best thing about Marvel is the connectivity of all these things, and
Mm-hmm.
like where are they going with Phase 4? What are they doing with these things? And we've said like you got to give them time to develop, but you cannot say there's no connections there, right? Like
Yeah.
think just like you said with Moon Knight, they're providing you some of these aspects, and we said it from the jump with the Avatar. Once the Avatar aspect came into play,
Yeah.
this is going to be important. Like we knew you don't just add a way you could become a superhero
And
without
not
being and not have it be an important element, right?
totally.
And it's not a coincidence that the first movie after this is Thor, right? And we're seeing a lot of those glimpses into the different gods and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
do not sleep. I think you're gonna start to see a lot of the things that you want to see connected that you might not have in Eternals and movies like that. And Shang-Chi with an intro. This is a fourth installment, right? They're good. They're well established in who Thor is. They're gonna tell a story, but they're also gonna try to push their narrative for Phase 4. I think with this movie as well.
I totally agree with you, and I yeah, like I made that quick little TikTok about it where I was talking about how some people were saying that it feels disconnected and they're not understanding things. Well, if you're not understanding things, you feel disconnected. Make sure you subscribe to us. Check us out. Check us out on TikTok, YouTube, wherever. Make sure you subscribe because we make new content all the single time. We'll keep you updated. We'll make the connections for you. So don't worry about anything else. But yeah, I think it is all connected. I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing is time as a connection, right? Whether that's past, present, future, whether it's connecting present and future, present and past, future and past, past and future. Like, it's all there. It's just you don't know yet. And I think people forget because we got so excited about Infinity War and Endgame and these other things that it's a process to get there, and it took us time to get there. So slow
Mm.
your roll. We're getting there. But Corey, let's just jump into this Miss Marvel right now. Uh, Off the bat, we had some questions come in. So, question number one from Miss Marvel, we got, what do you think of the style of the show so far? So we talked about how it's like Spider-Man Homecoming again. You saw the text on the wall. That was like a new little thing that they did. How you feeling about it so far?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's kind of what would be on par for my expectations given the character for the show, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
a young teenager, right? And I think like we talk about homecoming vibes in the sense of like it's this young teen, very mature, wants to be a superhero, definitely is not ready to be a
Yep.
superhero by any means yet.
No,
Right.
no.
I
Yeah.
started thinking too about like Ned's Declassified, right? And like
Mm.
just the little gimmicks and graphics things that they used to have with
Like
that,
that a
right? And I
lot.
think I think a cool thing too about that is it plays into the aspect of what we were talking about is like it feels like a TV show, right? Like it's the little added flavors of a TV show that make it good because typically with TV shows like a Ned's Declassified, right? Like they're just really like actors in this school setting, right? Like it's not really much flair, but with these
Mm-hmm.
graphics and things that they do, it adds a lot of flair to it. But I think it helps add to the flair of the character itself and Kamala, right? Because like they've established in this, like she needs to stop living in fantasy land. Like
Yeah.
she's imagining things too much, right? So being able to visually see the things that she's imagining helps build into that emotional attachment to the character, and I think why we enjoyed the first episode as much as
Yeah,
we did.
I would say like she's got this quirkiness to her. She's fun. She's playful. She's clearly like a Marvel super fan, like anyone else who's watching, right? So
Mm.
like to play into that where you have the animations and the flares and all, I think it just brings out her character, but also the world that she's in. It brings that out a little bit. And to let her know, like you saw like that guidance counselor using like the Mulan reference and like it just like I like some of these decisions that they've made so far to build up and like her going to Comic-Con. Like I'm sure a lot of different fans are watching. Like they can relate to going to Comic-Con, getting their outfit together. Her being Pakistani and growing up with that cultural difference with the family. I think you know, right? We all sort of relate to that in some sense, whether it's cultural or not. Like if you're an American, you just it's your parents being from a different generation, right? So they're like, why are you going to this? Why are you dressing up in a costume? You know, you need to study. Like they don't get the significance of some of these things, and I think they do a really great job of making so it connects to people who also aren't Pakistani, but also while recognizing like this is a very interesting story that they're sharing as well. I've definitely enjoyed that element as well, and I think for a youthful character, and I think we're heading towards that young Avengers that we've spoken about. It's a perfect tone for like some of the chaotic young energy that we've seen from some of these other characters so far. Let us know.
I agree. Love that.
Let us know in the comments below what you think about the style of this show so far. Make sure you subscribe because we make new content every single week. All right, Corey. So question number 2 that we got here. Will we see Carol Danvers in this series? Carol Danvers, Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, all connected. Listen, what do you think?
You know, I some would say I'm probably the biggest optimist when it comes to some of these entries into the shows and movies and cameos, and clearly Marvel's not afraid to do it, but I can tell you with full certainty right now, there is 0% chance she shows up in the show. Absolutely no shot. And I'll tell you for one reason only. If she can't show up in some of the biggest battles in the world, right? And she's only pulling up with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter with Thanos, right?
Yeah.
She's not showing up in Kamala Khan and Miss Marvel. And I also don't believe Disney's going to back up the Brinks truck, right? To get her into this TV show. So I think I'm looking at this more as like a business person than a Marvel fan and expert here. But also I think to the Marvel point, Carol Danvers is a show round. So like what Kamala said in the beginning, right? Like Kamala's a defender of her. She's out there doing a lot of important stuff, right? I don't think she's worried about what's going on in New York right now. So I really don't think we're gonna, or New Jersey, I apologize.
Yes.
I don't think we're gonna see her.
So I think it's funny, the exact reason why you said you don't think she's gonna show up, that's why I think she is, because one, we wouldn't expect it. It feels like for whatever reason, whether that's Brie Larson's contract or the character just being in space, dealing with other things that are more important, there's this sense that this character only deals with serious issues. And I think the best way to bring this character in, who is like sort of undervalued, they're sort of playing to the crowd, right? They know the crowd has sort of made fun of Captain Marvel a little bit, which is why you have Kamala making fun, sort of kind of having her back and defending her. She's a super fan. She's trying to figure out her powers. We know that this Marvel movie is coming, right, with all 3 of the girls. I think there needs some way to bring her back into Earth, and also just make her feel a little bit more human, right? Like, what do we talk about with Superman? One of the reasons people don't relate to Superman is because it's just he's this god out of the world. But Marvel, they make every character relatable, even her. And so I think she's gonna come back. Maybe that's some way we can get Monica Rambeau connected with all this stuff.
So this is where you hit my point. So I think you're way more likely to see Monica Rambeau as that entry, because if you were paying attention to this first episode, right, there was an end credit scene if you didn't see it. Yeah. And the end credit scene is the guy who was in No Way Home, and he was trying to put the case on Peter Parker and all of his friends, right? So they're going to be searching, and I think somebody in a government agency who obviously works with superheroes and does things like that is going to help out the situation. And given the fact there's going to be that movie there with the Marvels, I think it makes a lot of sense for Monica Rambeau to potentially get involved, given the fact that Westview is in New Jersey. So if you really think about where Monica is, she's right in the area anyways, right? So she might come around and be that connection as to how a super fan actually gets with Captain Marvel into the movie at the end of the day. So I think it's way more likely you see Monica Rambeau, and she hasn't had a lot of appearances either, right?
Right, yep.
So adding her in a little bit more through this series kind of builds her up for that movie, as you're going to tear up for that in a bigger role.
And I think that does make sense when we're talking about theories and predictions here, that you wouldn't really waste. Not that it's a waste to have Brie Larson here, but she's sort of used for some of these bigger projects. And even though we haven't seen a lot of Captain Marvel, the character's significance, it's sort of a character that you bring in for the big baddie, right? You don't use them for street crime, low level things.
Yeah.
But like I said, who knows? Maybe they surprise us because we all aren't really thinking about it. But I like your theory, Corey. Let's see what happens. I think Monica could show up, like you said, right in New Jersey. So, all right, comment below what you guys think. Do you think she's going to show up? Is it too early, too soon? Let us know what you think. Subscribe because we make new content every single week. And make sure you check out my boy Corey over at What's Next. All right, we got one more question here. So this one says, what's the history of Kamala's bracelet? So we see in this first episode that Kamala gets this bracelet from her mother, or her grandmother technically, but her mother is the one who gives it to her. Her mom actually says, oh, that bracelet, like she makes this little like moment to say, oh, this bracelet, like it's a familiar thing. We see her go through this sort of like ancestral plane thing. I'll see if I can pull up that image while you give your take on this. But what are your thoughts on this bracelet and just in general of like what's the history of that bracelet?
Yeah, so the bracelet is interesting to me, right? Like I think they're going with a completely different approach based on this first episode. Unless they deviate from this, it sounds like it looks like all of her powers are coming from that bracelet, right? Mm-hmm. So it deviates from the comics and where she really gets her powers from the Terrigen mist, right? And she's more of like an Inhuman in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. So they're leaning more towards
explain Inhuman for those.
So the Inhumans are, it's like different than mutants. So the mutants, right, are just genetically evolved. They're evolved. They've taken that next step in evolution and have the mutant gene. So they have powers, right? Where more so like Avengers and things like that aren't mutants, right? Like you have Tony Stark who built his suit. Like you have the super soldier serum, Gamma, things like that. Mm-hmm. Where Inhumans come from from Terrigen gas and mist. So it's basically this completely different entity that's in between like the normal superheroes we know and mutants and kind of this third faction. And it all comes from the Terrigen mist, which we really haven't seen yet in the MCU. Mm-hmm. And now they're kind of leaning away from that as well, because now you're seeing Kamala getting her powers from the bracelet, right? So it's leaning more towards Shang-Chi, where he gets his powers from the 10 rings, right? So we're starting to see with these phase 4 entities, they're starting to bestow these mystical powers through equipped items, so to speak.
Yes.
Right. And I think something of interest is because this is not from the comics, from my knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see, okay, what has happened with this bracelet. Was her grandmother a former superhero, like in Pakistan? Like, what is the situation that happened there? Like, you look at her mother, right?
Yep.
And clearly noticing that bracelet right off the bat, and wanting to snatch it. And the mothers and the parents have been clearly very defensive in this episode, very protective of Kamala. So for her to just snap over some jewelry, specifically because she saw the bracelet, because before that they show like these necklaces, and she really wasn't that concerned. Right when she saw the bracelet, she took it out and she asked, I think, the brother to bring it upstairs. And she's like, no, you need to go do it. Kamala's got stuff to do with me, right? So So I'm interested to see, like, can the guys not have it and it's only for the girls? Like,
maybe
the mother, based on the mother's tone, like she wants a more normal, safe, secure life, right?
Yes.
Maybe she didn't even want nothing to do with it. And the grandmother's now trying to get Kamala back into the family superhero business. So there's a lot of questions there, but it's an interesting play, and I like it truthfully because of the point I made with Shang-Chi, right? If this is how we're going to level these characters up that can't come out of nowhere, it makes sense, right? They got it from this item. That's why they weren't a superhero before. So I think it's a nice, easy injection without having to fully bring in the Inhumans, right? Because if you give Kamala powers through Terrigen Mist, then other people get those powers as well, right?
Yeah.
There's consequences to every action. So I like the direction they're going with this. It intrigues me because it really allows for you to maneuver how you want to bring in different characters in the future as well.
And last part with this whole thing is when she's on stage, we see her go through this sort of like ancestral plane, like of Pakistan. Like we talked about a lot about this in Moon Knight, how there's different like afterlives and things like that. Where do you think Kamala actually goes when she gets these powers?
You know, at first, I literally thought these were the Watchers at first glance. Like, it just looked like a bunch of bald guys, which looked like they had like those capes behind them, right? But on second glance, I'm more with you. Like, it looks like more of like an ancestral plane type of aspect, especially with the not to shout out one of our biggest channels that we love, New Rock Stars on here,
Yeah.
and this kid MT that we went to school with. There's that same look, right? That same purple hue and same energy. It looks like so. At first glance, given what we've been given in Phase 4 through Moon Knight, through some of these other projects, like it makes it seem like it's probably something Pakistani related, something Muslim related, based on her beliefs. But I'm gonna go on the contrary. I think it's more so whoever bestowed this power upon the bracelet itself, right? Wherever that comes from. Maybe it is from her Muslim or Pakistani background, and it kind of plays hand in hand with it. But I think this is more so the origins of it. And given the Shang-Chi aspect that I had talked about, the power comes from thousands and thousands and thousands of years before anything we know, right? So I'm wondering this is something more so out there in the universe. So I have really no true idea of where this is coming from. There's some similarities through some of the projects we've seen, but I think this is going to be something more so related to what I just talked about and being something like Shang-Chi and still question marks being there with the 10 rings and where this came from, right? I think we'll understand more of the history and the grandmother in the situation here, but maybe not fully about the origins of where the bracelet fully came from.
Yeah, I think I think it's a great theory. It's a fair theory as well. I think like you know the thing I said before is how is we all connecting with these things? It's connecting past, present, future. I think we could see definitely something new here, something interesting. I'll be curious how they connect the story. One thing we haven't seen a ton of as well is like the parents actually knowing that someone is a superhero. Like, it's always this cliche of thing of like, oh, I have to hide this from my parents. You know, I have to hide this from my parents. But to your point, maybe if the mom already knows about this. But, you know, the one thing I'll push back is if the mom knew about it, then I think she probably would have kept it away from her. So that's where it doesn't. But maybe she knew about, like, oh, this is like grandmother's fantasies and dreams and things like that, and just talking, but she didn't actually know that this bracelet was the actual thing.
That could be the case, but to your own point, right? If you really watch the episode, she got sent the package, right? And the package wasn't even open. Kamala was the one that opened it, and she, being the nosy little teenager she was,
that's true,
sifting through it. The mother says, "What are you doing?" She pulls out these the necklaces, and then she points out this bracelet that she really liked, and then right when she saw the bracelet, the eyes widened up like a deer in the headlights, and that's where she started getting real protective and defensive there. So I mean, we'll see, but I like this first episode a lot,
and
honestly.
And before we head out of here, what did you think of her, like her friend or buddy or whatever? Like, I'm not sure what they are, if there's a love interest thing there. So, like as him sort of being like this like tech guy for her. Did you like him at all, or?
So something that we noticed too, especially it's kind of like looking at Ned, right? Like they're gonna give these characters almost like that little sidekick guy, right?
Right.
Like
yeah.
we got Aquafina with Shang-Chi. We got Ned with Spider-Man, right? Like now
we got Bruno.
This kid.
Yeah,
we got Bruno, and
Bruno.
and I think the thing is I like how, like, clearly Bruno's into Kamala. Like it's pretty obvious. It was the cringy, like the kid's
High
not
school.
ready to pull. Yeah, not ready to pull a move yet. Like it makes sense, right? Like again, it kind of plays into the whole like relatable thing because it makes sense. A lot of it makes sense. You see yourself in it at a point in your life, right? And the thing that I have a wild theory on, and it probably will never be true because they didn't go with the Terrigen mist.
Yeah.
But I could see it would be so wild to me if this kid was literally a genius and somehow Kamala really got her powers from the Terrigen mist and Bruno's there and he gets infected and all of a sudden Bruno is low key MODOK. Because if you play the game, the Avengers game, Miss Marvel and MODOK are within it. And Miss Marvel and MODOK got their powers from the Terrigen Mist at Avengers Con, right? So there's some similarities between the game here. There's some apples and oranges, but I wouldn't be surprised if MODOK came into the MCU at some point. That's a wild theory. I think this kid's not that smart yet to be a MODOK, but that'd be an interesting play, maybe by like season 5 of Miss Marvel. Who knows?
Season 5 of Miss Marvel. Here we go. Here's a photo.
Let's give Bruno a couple years. I mean, that kind of looks like Bruno if we're thinking about it a little bit. That doesn't look like Kamala at all. It looks like Carol Danvers, but that's
what they're doing too. Is that like they're taking bits and pieces that they like. I don't hate the theory. I mean, the thing is, we're gonna see a lot too, as we get into these next 2 phases too. Is who is it's sort of this thing of like when you write stories and film and all that, if you get rid of a player like Captain America, right? You're like, what does Captain America represent? He represents leadership, that moral compass, doing the right thing even as breaking against the rules, treating people well. So then you have to take, he has these 4 characteristics. So now what you do as a writer is you go and give those abilities to the new characters that you're bringing in. So maybe Kamala is the moral compass. Maybe Peter is, that new leader, right? So you have to find ways to give those to other people. And so with Iron Man being gone, we need to find this new genius, this new person who can figure it out from the tech standpoint. We have Bruce, but it's a different sort of intelligence. Bruce is also going to age out, so we need younger intelligence. So now we have Spider-Man, we have that new character in Black Panther, blanking on her name, and we have Bruno, and I think we're going to start to see more and more of that.
I think to your point too, right? It's hard to fill the shoes of Tony, who brings a lot of attributes to the table. A Cap, who brings a lot of attributes to the table, right? I think it's going to play into why some of these shows too are a little bit slower, right? I think Disney has time with the ability now because we're getting way more content than we ever would have got, right? And I think a little bit of people's complaints like, yo, where's this going, right? And like Disney almost can slow play with the individual properties because in the grand scheme of things, they are still moving the chains for us, right? They've given us a lot of information, right? But they can use these individual characters to build up over time, right? So by the time you get to like an Infinity War, Kamala Khan may have already had 5 seasons of Miss Marvel underneath her belt, right?
Yeah.
Kate Bishop could already have 4 seasons of Hawkeye underneath her belt, right? So the reason why these characters aren't, just because these characters won't be fully ready by the end of their seasons, doesn't mean they're not going to be fully ready by the time they need to, right?
Correct.
And I think you need to give them, especially characters like this, because they're not Cap, they're not Tony, they're not going to level up so quickly because they have all those attributes, right? It's going to take a little bit more progression, right? They're not LeBron. They didn't just get. They're not the superstar first overall pick. They're like a back end first round pick, right?
We gotta Kawhi Leonard. They work on their game. They get great, bit,
right?
Yeah.
Then we'll get them there, right? But I think that's what you got to realize with these characters, right? Like Kamala is gonna be very raw in this first season. She's probably not gonna see that big threat. To my point about Captain Marvel, right? Like you're not gonna bring a Captain Marvel in here for some street fighting, right?
No,
She's gonna be in
yeah.
for a big threat. So that's something that they save for a movie. So you got to give these characters some time. They're trying to, like, to your point, fill one little void out of 4 voids that are coming from a missing character like Cap and Tony. So you got to be cognizant of that.
I 100% agree. But all right, so comment below. Let us know where you think Kamala got her powers, or where she was when she got her powers. Excuse me. Was she in that ancestral plane? Was she in the Pakistani ancestral plane, a afterlife? And then just where do you think they're going with this part? Do you like where they went with how she got her powers? Comment below. Let us know what you think. Make sure you subscribe because we make new videos every single week. Go check out my man Corey over on TikTok and YouTube of What's Next. Corey, thanks for coming on, my man. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, and remember, everyone, be safe and just be you. Peace.